Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're just going to do another velocity banking review. We're also going to go over ways that I don't think we should present velocity banking. And I've seen this all over the internet, and I think it's a little, I don't want to say deceptive, but I don't want to say ignorant either. But what's another word where I can say those two things, but in a much nicer way? If anybody in the should the YouTube land can comment and give me a word for that, that would be great. But anytime I see velocity banking presented in a way that I think is a little bit off, I'm kind of like this now. I don't want to watch these videos anymore just because like it's kind of wrong. And I even get comments telling me I'm wrong. And again, you know, I don't really care because I'll just tell you how it is. I'm gonna shoot straighter, right? And so here's the thing, okay? Well, this is what a lot of people present it like, oh, lines of credit are better than loans because lines of credit is simple interest and amortized loans is amortized interest when they're both calculated pretty much the same way. In fact, I'm going to go over the formula. Let me just kind of do this, like show you what the formula is of calculating the interest on a loan versus a line of credit. So this is going to be really easy, okay? So here's the formula. The formula is this. It's the interest rate. Oh, look at that tiny font. Okay, tiny font. It's the interest rate divided by 12. Whoopsie. Interest rate divided by 12 multiplied by, and I gotta kind of do my order of operations here, correct? Put the parentheses. Now, for a credit card or line of credit, so we'll just say credit card, it's going to be based on the average daily balance. Okay. Now for a loan, okay, let's do this. It's going to be based on the statement balance. Now, if you think about it, these two are actually the same for the most part. Like loan statement balance is technically the average daily balance for 99% of cases because the loan balance doesn't change or the statement balance doesn't change throughout the entirety of the month. Therefore, it's the average daily balance. Okay. And that's how you calculate the interest. And so you'll notice whether you're dealing with an amortized loan or a credit card or a line of credit, it's all the same. And so to kind of just say, hey, you should always replace a line of credit with a loan is not a good idea. The line of credit is a tool to help us pay off the debt, but it doesn't mean that we should never take an amortized loan. So, for example, if I'm buying a home for $300,000, right, and that home interest rate is 3%, and I have an option of buying with the first lien HELOC at 8 or 9%, I will always take the amortized loan at 3% over 30 years, right? I will always do that. Now, here's the thing about amortized loans. Here's what amortized loans mean, okay? Amortization just means that the loan balance is going to die over time, right? So the difference between something that's amortized and not amortized is maybe like an interest-only loan. So if you've ever heard of an interest-only loan, let's say you have a $200,000 balance, that's a starting balance, and it's interest-only, and you make 5 payments. After 5 payments, the balance is still $200,000, meaning the loan balance hasn't died over time, right? So if I go to, let's say, Santander Bank's website, they have an article about what's amortization. Okay, what's amortization? And if you take a look at this highlighted section, it says that amortization refers to a reduction value over time. But when people say, oh, loan interest is amortized interest versus line interest is simple interest, they're both simple interest. Okay, they're both simple interest. And so if I take a look here and I look at this 30-year mortgage, so if I type in this amortization calculator, $200,000 in 30 years at 6%, and you take a look at this, well, it's because, look at all the interest you're paying because it's amortized interest, right? That's actually not true because let's say I have the loan amortized at for 1 year. Just because it's amortized for 1 year doesn't mean, or just because it's amortized doesn't mean that I'm going to pay a lot of interest, right? So here's the thing we have to understand about loans or amortized loans is that there's always going to be a trade-off between interest versus cash flow. So if I amortize it for 1 year, take a look at this. Oh, look how little interest I pay, but look how it's going to ruin my cash flow, 17 grand a month. Whereas if I do it for 30 years, amortization over 30 years, meaning the loan is literally going to die in 30 years. And you see 1 year, this is all paid off, but it's literally going to die in 30 years. Well, the trade-off is, yes, my cash flow, um, I can now have much more manageable cash flow, but look at all the interest I pay. So interest and cash flow are kind of like the inverse opposites when it comes to amortized loans. And so what we're trying to do is, yes, even if we have a 30-year mortgage, what we're using is the line of credit as a tool to help us pay it off quicker, but it doesn't mean that we need to replace our loans with the line of credit. Okay, that's something that I would never present, because I've done presentations before. I've done YouTube videos before comparing the line of credit versus our first lien home equity line of credit versus a loan, and I'm going to do that again today in this video to show you, hey, we can't just throw out words and slogans to say, well, it's better because it's simple interest versus amortized. We have to know the nuances, right? And so let's go ahead and do another velocity banking demonstration here. And we're going to just do that comparison one more time with this situation. So let's say that we had a situation where we literally had $1 left over in savings, and somebody says, you know, hey, why don't you replace your entire debt with a home equity line of credit, because this is amortized interest, right? Amortized interest is bad. And we're going to just do a breakdown and comparison. And again, what's the most important thing? We actually do the math. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the comparison here. So what's the two comparisons? The first comparison is if we use a first lien HELOC to replace all debt, and then if we use a second lien HELOC just as a tool to help us manage our cash flow, right? We don't have to eliminate all of our loans and replace it with the first lien HELOC. We don't want to do that, because we can see that the differences between the first lien HELOC, meaning we're going to place all our debt with maybe like an 8% tool, versus a second lien HELOC, meaning that it's just you still keep your mortgage, but you use that second lien HELOC to be able to manage your debt and maintain and yeah, manage your cash flow, right? And I say this as a person who has a first lien HELOC. I have this huge first lien HELOC for $280,000. It's huge, right? Who says that? It's huge. It's bigly, right? So $280,000 home equity line of credit. So I know as a first home equity line of credit account holder that it's not in your best interest to have one unless your mortgage is paid off, right? I'll say it like that. And so let me just kind of go here. And also, as someone who actually paid off a mortgage under 3 years, take a look at that. Yeah, it's just me bragging rights, flexing. So this is my street cred. Okay, so let me just kind of go here. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to compare a first lien HELOC, meaning that we're going to, instead of getting a additional line of credit, we're going to replace our mortgage with this line of credit and also move all of our debts into there and see what the difference is. So what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using a line of credit as your main operating account. But this does not mean we get rid of all loans and replace them with a line of credit, especially on the onset, right? So let's go ahead and do this. We have a budget. We see right here, income, expenses, savings. We do an expense breakdown. We have the auto loan, mortgage, and then the food, gas, insurance, all the other stuff. Things that are not in debt, I just kind of estimate. Like we can easily estimate what's not debt versus debt. And the whole point of this is that we get rid of the debt, right? Getting rid of debt increases our cash flow, and we have to do it in the proper way. All right. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to do the velocity banking side. So what's really important is that we make sure that we do the opposite of what mainstream Americans told to do, which is have a savings account. And we're going to have something called cash flow. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And so how do you have cash flow but with no savings? Well, it's just easy. Dump all your money into your line of credit and use that as your main operating account. So if you take a look right here, you can see in one of my checking summaries, or if this could be your savings as well, if money comes in, it's always going to stay zero at the end, right? Because anytime we get paid, we're going to make an overpayment and make it stay into our line of credit. And then once we need expenses, we take it out of our line of credit. Technically, it would actually be a credit card for me because I have a little bit different, this is a little bit more simplified, but I do use credit cards and lines of credit. Okay. So let's go ahead and sum up all of these debts. And I think I did sum them up. So it's $457,000 of debt. Let's assume, because we're going to do the first lien HELOC scenario, that we have a $500,000 limit at 8% interest rate, because that's what I got in my first lien HELOC. Although I've seen other lenders offer like 9 or 10. I actually had a 10% HELOC when I first got it. And again, you might be thinking, what's a HELOC? It's basically a huge credit card based on the value of your home minus the debts that you owe on it. That's all it is, right? Like a huge credit card. Now, let's say we did a transfer of all the debt to their home equity line of credit. So there's like, how many debts are there? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 debts. So what I'm going to do is we're going to transfer this debt. So transferring this debt is $457,000 of debt. So we'll do just 4574000. And then what happens here is that this is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Oh my goodness, right? And so once we do that, we're going to put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, expenses out, and then after every single month, the balance should go down by $6,111 and some change. But the problem is that we also have this interest cost of using the line of credit after every single month. Right? So now let's go ahead and do this and calculate the balance of the line of credit, or the next balance, which is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow. So 6111.68, right? And what we need to do is calculate the interest, which is based on the average daily balance. So let's just do that right here, average daily balance. Multiply it by the interest rate, which is 0.08, and then you divide by 12. Okay, now take a look at this. Our cash flow is not it's not even close to $6,000. It's close to $3,000 because of the we're putting all of our debt into the line of credit. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to rinse and repeat the process. And you could see that the interest is going down eventually, but it's still staying at that $3,000 mark, right? So after every month, the balance itself is actually going to go down. Our true cash flow is really about $3,000, okay? So now we scroll down here and we'll take a look at how long it takes us to pay off this first lien HELOC, okay? So we're going to do that here, and then let's say it takes us about 104 months, right? So 104 months, and then we're going to sum up the balance or the interest that it cost us. So, whoa, take a look at this. So 173K of interest and 104 months to pay off everything, right? So let's go ahead and do that here and write down this 104 months. And that's a lot of interest, right? So again, let me do this. What's 173 divided by 457? That's about 37% total interest. So I don't like that. That doesn't seem too good. So let's see what we can do if instead of replacing our mortgage, okay, we just got a second lien HELOC, right? We just got a second lien HELOC, meaning that we're just going to we're not replacing all of our debts, but maybe, I don't know, we'll just say $150,000 limit. And we'd kind of do the most sensible thing, which is chop up the debt into pieces at a time. So there's a concept called the cash flow index. Okay, cash flow index. And let me just kind of do this right here. Cash flow index, where you take the balance of the debt and then you divide it by the payment to get a number, right? So let me just type in cash flow index here in Google. And basically all this means is it's going to give you this number, this ranking right here, and anything over 100 you kind of want to pay off last, and anything under 50 you want to pay off as quickly as possible. And I think of it as a ranking system. So the more you pay it off quickly, right? You pay off a debt quickly that's inefficient, the more cash flow you get. And so I'll just kind of give you an example of this. So 5,000 divided by the payment, which is 175. Notice how this is 28. Whereas if I do this with a 30-year mortgage, whoopsie, I screwed up here. Well, I'll do it right here. I'll do it right here. So let's say 300,000 divided by 1264.81, and ignore the dollar sign for now. So this is 237.19. Notice how this one is so much smaller and this one is huge, meaning if we pay this off quickly, we're going to get more bang for our buck. In fact, let me erase this and let me erase this, and I'll just explain it in simple terms. So take a look at this credit card, right? Or take a look at these two credit cards, 37,000. And you get about the same amount of cash flow for that 37,000 compared to the 300,000, right? And so which one is will give you more bang for your buck? Do you want to give someone $37,000 to get $1,200 back, or do you want to give someone $300,000 to get $1,200 back? I'd rather get the 3,700. So that's the way that we have to focus on debt payoff, is making sure we do it in the correct order. And so we're going to start with the credit cards first, right? Because the interest rate is correlated with the cash flow. It's not the only thing, right? Various factors, although interest rate does play a big part. So now we're going to move this debt. So this is $137,000, so 137,000. And then what we're going to do is take the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus whatever a cash flow is. So 4450.84, right? You see that right here, 4450.84. And then what we do is we calculate the interest, okay? So the interest is based on the average daily balance multiplied by the interest rate, 0.08, and then divide by 12. And so now let's go ahead and do what we're doing before, and then copy and paste. Okay, so now let's see how much it costs us to handle those credit cards, right? And then we can see that the credit cards took us about 35 months, right? So 35 months, and let me just do this. So 35 months, and let's sum up the interest, right? So what we do is just do this right here. We're going to sum it up, and so about 16.2 grand, 16.2K interest for 35 months, right? See that right there? So let me go ahead and copy and paste this right here, right? So that's basically the CC, okay? And now we got to figure out what the current balance of the auto loan and the mortgage is. So let me just go right here to our loan calculator, and let me delete these. So these are, I think, let me take a look. Is this the right information? 369. So after 35 months, we just got to type in 35 in our loan calculator here. Don't try to understand it for now, because I literally took 8-hour classes on this to figure out what all of this means, right? So don't worry about, like, I don't understand what this means. Like, I don't expect you to watch a YouTube video to figure out all this. Don't worry about it. But what my point is this, okay, that we can calculate what the current balance is after 35 months and how much interest is paid with all these fancy Excel functions, right? It's really cool. Okay, and so we see here that if we move this loan to our line of credit, we get immediate cash flow. Look at that cash flow index. It's really low, below 50, right? I love below 30, 40. That's really good cash flow. So what I'm going to do is move this here into the line of credit, okay? So let me just do this one more time, okay? And then this is what we're going to do in month 35. We're going to do the payoff order by, pay off the loan and credit cards and all that one at a time rather than replacing your entire thing with the mortgage. And so let me just do this right here, okay? So let's go ahead and move this to the line of credit. So 9187.66, right? And now what's our cash flow? Well, our cash flow, if we go back here, is now $4,846.87. Okay, so let's go back here, and I'm going to do this. Values, copy and paste this. Did I do this correctly? Oh yeah, I did. Okay, so I copy and paste this, and then I just gotta put in my new cash flow, which is 4846.87, I believe. 4846, but yeah. Okay, so now look at that, paid off in 2 months. Well, blam. Right, that's cool, right? So let me just do this, highlight this here. And so you can see that maybe the interest cost was about 40 or 50 bucks, right? I don't know if we should sum all this, but it's like, all right. So 37 months, right, to pay off. Should I sum it up? I'll just sum up these two. I'll be a little bit conservative. So this is going to be H37 plus H38. So we'll say 56 bucks. We'll be conservative for our interest, or yeah, 56 bucks additional plus the interest we paid up till now. So let me do this, 3,000. So that's going to be about $3,100 of interest, right? So 3,000. So let's just do this, 3,100 of interest at 37 months. Okay. So let me just do that right here. So this is the car loan. Okay. And then now what we do is we tackle on the 30-year mortgage, right? And we don't have to replace it. And what we do is something called chunking, right? So all chunking is just you splitting the loan into in pieces and paying it off that way versus replacing the entire loan. Okay, so if I do 37 right here, again, should I replace the entire mortgage with the line of credit or just chop it up into pieces? Remember, if you have a cash flow index that's very high, above 100, that means that if you pay it off, you don't get that much cash flow. This is why it doesn't make sense to replace this entire thing with the line of credit, because we don't want to pay $280,000 to get $1,200 of cash flow back, right? Like we don't want to do that. It's not enough cash flow. But at the same time, we know that if we don't pay this thing off quickly, there's a lot of interest to be paid. So for example, if this goes to full term, 360, take a look at that, $155,000 of interest, which is 50% interest. Okay, so how do we tackle this, right? Well, most important thing we have to understand is that this mortgage is the last thing that we pay off. It's not the first thing we pay off. It's the last thing we pay off. And then once we maximize our cash flow, then we can easily just use our cash flow to break it up into pieces and I'm sorry, we're going to break it off into pieces and use our cash flow to pay it off quickly. Okay. So for example, let's say, take a look at here, 300,000 is the original balance, 280 is the current balance, and it took us 37 months to get here. So what happens if we move 20 grand into the line of credit, right? So let's move 20 grand here. Okay, so plus 20000. And if we take a look here, how long does it take us to pay off that 20 grand? Oh my goodness, 4 months. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we take a look here, it took us, according to the bank schedule, 37 months to pay off the $20,000, and we had to pay 26 grand of interest. Yet we were easily able to do it in 4 months, and we just rinse and repeat the process every other 4 months if we're going to use 20 grand chunks. Now, I personally just use a low chunk amount, right? Similar to your paycheck, it doesn't take up your credit limit, and you don't basically making more chunks actually, or higher chunks, if that's that what you want to call it, will actually increase the amount of interest that you pay, because you're moving that 3% loan into a higher interest rate line of credit. And the more that you move, because think of it like this. Let's say you have an oven that's like on low, right? But then if you cook the meat in an oven, even on low, if you give it enough time, that's going to be a really juicy I don't know what, chicken, turkey, right? But let's say that you move some of that, turkey into a high oven, right? High temperature oven, but then you open that door like every 5 minutes. Now, again, I'm not the biggest expert on ovens, but I'm pretty sure that if you slightly increase that temperature, but just keep opening that door of the oven, it's going to be very hard to cook. And this is the kind of the same, let's say, ideal with the chunking is that yes, you're dumping some of that loan into that line of credit, but it doesn't have to be a big amount. And the whole purpose why we're doing it is so that we don't segregate our income and we can easily use our cash flow to pay it off, right? Now, luckily, we have this velocity banking calculator to kind of show this. So give me one moment. All right, there we go. Here's the velocity banking calculator. And I've already put the information in. You just spit it in and then, or put in the numbers and it just spits out a number of how long it takes for you to pay it off and the interest that you save, right? And here's the crazy thing that a lot of people don't know. And again, this is the Renatus velocity banking calculator where I originally learned velocity banking from. Again, this whole YouTube channel is kind of like maybe like 30% me promoting Renatus. And so if you're interested in not only learning about velocity banking, but also about financial literacy, real estate investing, go ahead and click the Google form link below. So let me just do this, okay? So 4.1 years, 18 grand of interest that we pay, okay? But take a look at this, okay? So if we did a first lien HELOC, take a look at this, 56 grand versus 18 grand. What do you want, 56 grand or 18 grand? I'd rather pay only 18 grand of interest and not 56 grand, right? Because why would I need to do a first lien HELOC? Now, here's the crazy thing. Even if I'd use a 30% credit card, I will still beat that first lien HELOC if I just do the chunking method and not replace my entire mortgage with the line of credit. I could use a 30% credit card and that will beat it. Isn't that crazy? So a lot of people are like, "Oh my goodness, 30% credit card, like I can't handle it." And here's the thing: let's say a credit card was your only tool. Think about if you just did 9,000 chunks over and over again. What's the likelihood they're going to increase your credit limit? It's going to be so huge, right? This is how I have over $527,000 in lines of credit because I just kind of use my credit a lot, but at the same time, um, I left no balance, right? So be aware of that, okay? So my point is this, is that we don't need a first lien home equity line of credit because, we don't want to go rah, line of credit always better than loan. We have to be a little bit strategic, or as one of the former presidents of the United States used to say, we need to use some strategery, okay? So for 18.9 grand, let me go ahead and copy this, 4.1 years. And we're just going to do that right now. So 37. So the total time payoff, okay, is 37 plus 4.1 divided by time. I think it's times 12. Okay. So 86.2 months, right? And how much interest do we pay up to that point? It's 18.9 grand. Okay. 18.9 grand. So 26, let's just do this. 26.8 plus 18.9. So in total, we paid about 45 point, whoopsie. Did I screw up? I think I screwed up. Let me go back and see if I can redo what I just did. Hopefully I don't want to waste your time. Oh, is there, oh no. Oh no. Okay. Let's just do the redo button, right? Redo. All right, sweet. So with the amortized loan, okay, amortized loan, it's going to take us 86.2 months and 45.7K of interest. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy that. Go back here. And so this is for our mortgage and mortgage. Okay, so now let's sum it all up. So 173, so let me just do this. 104 months divided by 12, that's 8. Oh, it gave me a fraction. Okay, 8.6 years, right? And then this one is 86.2 months divided by 12. That's 7.18 years, right? So which one looks better now in terms of time? The first lien HELOC does not, because you're wasting about a year or so, a year and a half, with the first lien HELOC, whereas the second lien HELOC a little bit faster. Now let's calculate the interest, right? So this is going to be 16.2 plus 3.1 plus 45.7. Whoa, 65K of interest, right? So, oh, 65K of interest. So which one looks better to you? This one or the 173K of interest, right? 173. So this is why there's a lot of neglected parts of velocity banking that you see on YouTube, and then you see very like simplistic kind of uh, I don't know, slogans like simple interest versus amortized interest in a line of credit is always better than a loan, when you need to do the math. Okay, so you need to do the math and do a few comparisons and think about the trade-offs. But um, every time I see this, you know, I'm like face palming and shaking my head and thinking. And here's the funny thing: I've seen a lot of YouTube videos, right? So when you see me do like these YouTube amortized mortgage payoff scenarios, you'll notice that it's usually between 4 to 8 years that the mortgage gets paid off. Like 4 to 8 years. And I've actually seen scenarios where people saying, oh, with the first lien HELOC, everything's going to be paid off in 16 years. Now, in my worldview, because I've been doing this for about a year, just like every day, a little YouTube video, I kind of have like a sense of like what should be typical. And 16 years paying off a mortgage is like you are cash broke and poor, believe it or not. Like in my world, right? So again, in real life, I paid off my mortgage into 3 years, but I see this one as like 4, and maybe typically 5 to 7 in mortgage would be typical. And so when I see like doing a first lien HELOC and paid off at 16, that's something that I don't like. I can't like get behind. You know what I mean? That's just more like paying Paul or robbing. Oh, hold on, robbing Peter to kind of save money and then pay Paul, kind of, but not really. Okay, never mind. Bad analogy. Okay, well that's it for today. So this is Korean Atlanta mentorship. So have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.